Premier Eby in New York City, trolling for investors at Climate Week NYC. Power on. All we can say is hypocrisy abounds. Premier David Eby of British Columbia put out this tweet saying Climate Week is in full swing in New York and we're meeting with investors from around the world that are interested in projects in BC. That means more jobs for British Columbians and prosperity for all of Canada. But he had this kind of disclaimer. I'm here in New York City and obviously an unusual time to be in New York or in the United States at all, referring to the tariff situation between our two countries. But he said he was meeting with investors and that he was pushing clean electricity, mining, and forestry. Actually, he should not bite the hand that feeds him and his province, because U.S. electricity exports to Canada have increased since September 2023. And it's the Western interconnection that's shown the most variability. And you can see here that British Columbia Hydro is drawing a lot of power from the United States. Why? Because they're in a drought condition. But in this presentation that he made in late July, he said, our engine is electric. One of our big advantages here in British Columbia is our clean, cheap electricity. We set records for having very low carbon emissions when products are produced here in British Columbia. That's what he says. Let's see if it's true. He also says, the second thing is that we believe that climate change is real, and we have a role to play here in British Columbia in driving down emissions. He also said that he noticed that Donald Trump doesn't like windmills that produce electricity. And he said, let me tell you to all American clean energy producers, come relocate to British Columbia. We are the clean energy capital of the world. BC's electricity generation is mostly hydro, but that's only 18% of energy use. BC runs on oil and gas. And they're in kind of financial trouble. The Fraser Institute issued this commentary, only spending restraint will contain BC government's debt explosion. And this article in the Western Standard by Carmen Binda of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation said, Eby's Clean BC plan will hurt us more than Trump's tariffs. The report claims Eby's Clean BC plan will wipe out nearly $110 billion from the province's economy by 2029. And this is the report they're referring to. And this is another excerpt from that Western Standard article, that Washington's tariffs could shave $43 billion off the province's GDP between 2025 and 2029. But that pales in comparison to the damage Eby is planning on doing. Eby's Clean BC plan will wipe out nearly $110 billion from the province's economy during that same time period. So the Eby's Clean BC plan is 2.5 times worse for BC's economy than are Trump's tariffs. And Mike's Money Talks had this comment. Stated plainly, the Eby government has taken a wrecking ball to British Columbia's public finances. BC debt to GDP rose 76% since NDP Premier David Eby took office in fiscal 2022 to 23 to forecast 2025 to 26. Per capita debt is up 44%. Total provincial debt up 74.6%. BC received 3 credit downgrades in 2 years. Note, not a big concern for 46% of voters, along with 2 Green Party MLAs who returned the NDP to power in the October 24th election. Clean BC? Well, again, from that Western Standard article talking about zero-emission vehicles, that the plan intends to ban all new gas and diesel vehicles by 2035. But they go on to say in the Western Standard article that there are roughly 3.3 million gas and diesel cars and trucks on the road in BC. If they were replaced with zero-emission vehicles, BC would need to build 3 new Site C dams just to charge them all. It cost BC taxpayers $16 billion to build the original Site C dam. Multiply that by 3, and we can assume it would cost BC taxpayers $48 billion just to build enough dams to charge all the zero-emissions vehicles that EB wants to force on British Columbians through the Clean BC plan. And that's not all. Site C Dam started back in the 1980s and was only recently completed, so there certainly won't be enough power by 2035. And serious socioeconomic consequences will be in place for BC if they go ahead with this. This is a research article done by professional engineer Kent Zer. He's talking about the false assumptions in a very popular paper by Keller et al. About BC vehicle electrification. He said that while their logic is impeccable, it's founded on naive, simplistic, or just false assumptions. So, consideration of the corrected or realistic assumptions invalidates all the conclusions of their paper. The faulty premises underlying Keller et al. Will have serious socioeconomic consequences for the people of British Columbia if no further critical assessment of their proposals is undertaken by policymakers. And look at this. Clean BC runs on oil. This is an old screenshot of the Port of Vancouver website, but you can see here they have marine operations, cargo and terminal, truck and rail, cruise. That's all oil. Then they operate across 5 business sectors: automobile, container, cruise, break, bulk, and project cargo, bulk. It's all oil. And how about YVR, Vancouver International Airport? All these tourists and airport jobs are all thanks to big oil, because everything runs on jet fuel. They welcomed in this year, again, this is an older screenshot, 13 million passengers from 108 countries, 125 non-stop destinations in Canada, the US, and around the world were served by YVR. They welcomed 22.3 million passengers in 2016, and they handled over 250,000 takeoffs and landings. That's all oil, jet fuel. And how about Nanaimo out on the island? The port of Nanaimo is the largest port on Vancouver Island. It administers approximately 50 kilometers of waterfront. In the cargo area, the port facilities include 40.5 hectare assembly wharf. They have almost 5.5 million passengers and over 2.1 million vehicles in and out of the harbor annually. They have 2 seaplane companies carrying about 158,000 passengers. And in 2014, Nanaimo Port Authority handled over 4.1 million metric tons of cargo. So this is a transportation gateway for Vancouver Island. Nanaimo Port Authority handled over 4.1 million tons of petroleum, forest products, chemicals, and salt. That was in 2014. I'm sure it's up from then. And of course, cruise ships. What do they use? Marine diesel. And Port of Victoria. It's a hub for transportation, commerce, trade, recreation, and tourist activities. So it's also using oil. Marine diesel, as a matter of fact. Here we have BC Ferries. We're proud to be one of the largest ferry systems in the world, serving 1,600 kilometers of coastline and moving over 62,000 customers and 23,000 vehicles on average each day. So that's marine diesel. And BC runs on oil. It's obvious. So if there's a climate emergency, BC is an active participant in creating it. And maybe you remember Laurel Collins, former NDP MP from Victoria. She had this rather touching moment when she got quite emotional about the climate emergency and almost started crying, saying climate emergencies are not gender neutral. The degradation of ecosystems disproportionately impacts women and girls, and I'm wildly emotional. This is the existential crisis of our time. We need to think about the intersection of gender and the climate crisis. We are facing a climate emergency. Maybe not. BC exports coal. Where? To China. So Steve Saretsky is saying here BC's largest export is coal, and worldwide coal usage just hit record highs, and it's going to keep growing. Meanwhile, Vancouver bureaucrats telling you it's illegal to heat your home with a gas furnace because they're saving the environment. And he laughs. And yes, here is from the International Energy Agency website, the energy mix in China, and you can see that 60.9% of their energy mix is coal, and their emissions since 2000 are up 245%. Now, BC is rich in mining operations and opportunities, but you don't get to mine without using diesel. So this is a tweet from John Lee Pettimore saying, I get asked this question a lot. How much fuel does that bad boy burn? The 9800 runs 2 engines, QSK 60s, each 2,000 horsepower. Each engine burns approximately 120 gallons per hour, or 2,880 gallons per 12-hour shift, or 2 million gallons per year. You can't make green energy without a lot of diesel fuel. And this is from 2009, so some of the stats may have changed, but it does give you an idea of how much demand there is in mining for energy. So when you consider that less than 0.03% of BC's land base is used for mining, the fact that about 7 mines in BC consume 14 to 17% of all the power generated by BC Hydro is impressive. So they also talk here that the large energy-hungry open pit mines need up to 930 gigawatt hours per year. And there are many smaller mines, some with no more than 10 employees, operating outside of the BC Hydro service territory, running off diesel generators, even if they were near a transmission line so that they could run their operations on electrical power. It might not be worth using it. So that's some food for thought. Mining is an energy hog. We better just agree on that. So if we look here, on average, the energy costs account for a substantial 15 to 40% of total operating expenses for mining companies. And this is very startling. According to a briefing note prepared for the Premier in March of 2024, 10 mining, oil and gas, and hydrogen projects collectively sought almost 33,000 gigawatt hours of electricity from BC Hydro. The magnitude of increase, this figure is more than twice the amount of power that BC Hydro sold to all of its large industrial customers in 2024. So again, people should be grateful that the Americans are providing extra power when needed. I think it's worthwhile going back to this presentation by Václav Smil. It is from 2015, but it's still true today. It's called Energy Revolution, More Like a Crawl. And he makes these key points. We are a fossil-fueled civilization. We are a fossil fuel civilization. We shall remain so for a long time to come because energy transitions take a great deal of time. Scale matters. So does power density. And it's always better to use energy rationally than to come up with new ways how to use it. We are doing exactly the opposite. Innovation is an overvalued, exaggerated item because when you actually think of it, we are still living in the world of the 1880s. And what does he mean by that? Well, millions, billions of people around the world are still using dung and wood scraps and biomass to live, to heat their food, to heat their homes. We're still using wood, we're still using coal, lots of it, as we just saw, and we're still using natural gas, we're still using oil, we've adopted nuclear, we're still using all of these old 1880s methods like wood. And also, when we're talking about wind and solar, we're actually going back in time because those were the first energy forms that humans used before fire. So the power that is on is actually fossil fuels. And here's an idea for Premier Eby. When you're talking about being in New York, you could say, I'm here in New York City, and despite the ongoing tariff situation, I'm grateful for the access to electrical power sent from our U.S. neighbors who have been helping us out during recent drought years. BC has great opportunities for investment. I hope to make some deals. Join us, friends of science, in the race from net zero. And how to get away from it? Buy our book. This is an 88-page booklet, and it's very colorful, very simple to read, very direct, and it will show you that net zero is not possible, and in fact, it's very detrimental. The only thing we should do with net zero is to run away from it. Thanks for watching this presentation. Go to our website, and you can order this book at friendsofscience.org.